Hey, in this video, we're gonna talk about how to use blocks for arm balances. I have a lot of students that come to me and say, my yoga teacher told me to use blocks, but I don't know how. And that's a thing, right? We're told to use a block, yeah, but how, okay? So we're gonna cover that. Blocks in arm balances are a game changer. If you're new to the arm balance practice, make friends with your blocks. They are so helpful for lifting the ground away and for helping overcome fear. We're going to talk about those two things today. There are more reasons to use blocks, but I want to focus in on those two. So first things first, when you are using blocks to lift the ground up to meet you, it makes poses a lot more accessible. A lot of times we can't get into a pose because we're not flexible enough in that moment to get our hands to where they need to be, and elevating the floor is super helpful. In other cases, the poses are really freaking low to the ground. And adding blocks helps lift them up off the ground so you can have more space to feel the pose. So the first thing you need to understand is, how do we hold the blocks? And I will say, the firmer your blocks, the better your life is going to be. If you have very squishy $3 blocks from Target, you may experience wrist pain, because what's going to happen is your wrists are going to sink into the squishy foam of the block and you're not going to get good feedback from the floor. Arm balances are all about using your hands as a balancing system. And if you take away the ability to get feedback, there goes your balance. So firm blocks should be able to make a noise when you hit them, and you don't want them to squish down too far. So really, really dense foam, cork or wood are most excellent. If you're like, shit, man, I don't have one of those, take whatever cheap ass block you have and put a book on top of it, a hardcover book. Okay, so how to use your hands with blocks. None of this, okay? If you put lazy ass hands on your block, you will experience wrist pain and an inability to balance. Your balance comes from spreading your hands to make your base as wide as possible and then gripping your fingers into the blocks. Don't do this. No hands over the top of the block. We want full hand grip, as if this is a basketball and you want to pick it up and dribble it. So I like to bring thumb to the outside of the block, pinky finger over to the other side. Yes, the size of your hands matters. If you have small hands, your fingers might not be on the other end of the block. Okay, so there'll be jazz hands right here. But spread your fingers wide and grip into the block. If I try and take the block away from you, I shouldn't be able to. You should be held in your hand. So that's stage one. Keep your hands firmly on the blocks and don't do any of this. Why? Because when we do this, the weight goes straight into the wrists and then we go, but my wrists hurt. And I'm like, yeah, because what stops your wrists from hurting is distributing the weight into your fingers. So how to use blocks for arm balances, part one. Part one is elevating the floor up. For a pose, for example, like flying lizard, look how close to the floor this pose is. I know the pose, I can do it, so it's not a problem for me. But when you're learning, you're gonna feel like you're eating the floor. And I'll be like, that's because you are. So at the beginning, lifting the floor up can give you so much more space. Watch how much higher off the floor my pose is now. It's correct either way. But being that high up off the floor gives you more space to move and more space to figure out your balance. The last thing you want is to be trying to learn a brand new pose and be smashed into the floor with no room to play. So blocks elevate. For a pose like Titibasana, Firefly, that requires some flexibility to get into. You might be able to get here and then you go, Nat, I feel like T-Rex. My arms are too short to get my hands flat on the ground. I'd be like, your arms are not too short, but you might be missing some hip flexibility to allow yourself to get all the way in. For a pose like that, you'll put the blocks behind your feet and then put your hands flat on the blocks. And this simply makes it so much easier to find the shape because you've lifted the floor to contend with any limitations in your flexibility. So the other way to use blocks that I love is as a face plant preventer. The biggest thing that holds people back from arm balancing is fear. Fear to break their face on the floor. Can you relate? I certainly can. And a lot of yoga teachers will teach with the blocks under the feet. I do not like that, and I'll tell you why. Because 99% of the time, What is stopping someone from doing something like this is not that their feet are too low. It's fear of leaning forward. In order to catch my balance, it's not about my strength. I just have to shift, 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 shift until my feet lift. Okay? And for people that can't do that, it's just fear. So what happens when we put feet on blocks? We make that fear so much worse. Because now, oh my God, my hips are so high, and from this height, I'm supposed to trust myself to lean forward. It could work for some people. Nothing is ever always or never. It could work. But in my experience, teaching tens of thousands of people how to arm balance, this makes the fear factor worse. It lifts you up off the ground even worse, and then asks you to trust yourself coming forward from an even higher surface. So what do we do instead? Flip the script. Don't put the blocks under the feet, put the blocks under the head. It eliminates the fear because you have some place to put your head. And it also gives you a place to aim for. However, where you put the blocks is hella important because in arm balances, the pose will only balance once your elbows are stacked on top of your wrists, right about here. So if I were to put my blocks too close to my hands, watch what would happen. I put my forehead here, but do you see my elbows are behind my wrists and I can't lift up. And I don't want this for you, okay? To put your head on the blocks and then be like, but I still can't do it. Where the blocks are is key because we need them far enough forward that when I shift forward and stack my elbows over my wrists, I should be able to then place my forehead down and lift my feet. Okay, but your forehead has to go far enough forward that your elbow is on top of your wrist when your head comes down. So film yourself, do this next to the mirror, look for that point. Once your elbows are stacked, put your head on the blocks. Why do we do 2 blocks and not 1? Because in arm balances, we want to go forward, not down. If you go down, if you put a low block, my body is going to want to go reach for that block and I'm going to go downwards and I don't want to go downwards. Going downwards is a recipe for face planting. You want to go forwards. So giving yourself a block situation that's high enough that's not going to trick you into going down is super helpful. So gaze up, set up your pose, shift forward, get the elbows on top of the wrists, place your forehead on the blocks and then play with lifting the feet. Then your homework is going on what planet could I hover my head forward without pushing my feet back onto the ground, right? And notice the blocks are right there to support me as the anti-face plant mechanism, okay? But the blocks are gonna support you so much better under your face than they will under your feet. I showed it with crow pose. You could do this with anything. Flying pigeon, flying crow, side crow, literally any of your arm balances. Put the tool in front of you, not behind you, and use it to elevate the floor. If you learned something and you would love to have support with your arm balances and inversions, this is what I do all day, every day. I specialize in teaching intermediate and beginner yogis how to stand on their hands and upside down in the body that they have today. If you want to check out my completely free training that breaks down my teaching methodology, comment freebie below and I'll send you the link. And if you want to check out my course right away and be like, fuck it, I'm in, check out the link in the description below and click on the Yogi Flight School program to go check out our registration page and see if it's for you. Either way, I will see you in the next video. Thanks for hanging out. Mwah.